Hi everyone, it's Travis, the Pagan Scholar, here with an episode of Tarot and Poetry. Today we're talking about the Hierophant. Turning first to our authority, Binabel Wynn, we read, the Hierophant card suggests conformity as a prevailing impulse. To conform, one must repress certain aspects of oneself that are different from others. Hence, the Hierophant card is also about concealment. It can represent deception, the concealment, or distortion of truths. To move on, because there's actually a lot involved with the Hierophant, one of the best lines of explaining it is actually, generally the card represents the orthodox institution in power, and the subjugation or even oppression of those who stray from that orthodoxy. So, yeah, all of that. However, my personal interpretation is just a little bit different, because the Hierophant is my favorite card to hate. For me, the Hierophant actually represents higher education, which goes along with Binabel Wynn's definition of the Hierophant. However, for me, it really leans heavily on higher education because the higher education system of America is completely fucked, and it's nothing but a bunch of charlatans. It's a degree machine, and it just, you go in, you take on massive amounts of debt before you even know what you want to do with your life, change your major a couple of times, take on some more debt, and then, start out in a crippled economy with massive amounts of debt. And I'm sorry, this is all like really old news, but it's like part of my pain, and I'm going to recognize this pain and share it with you and bring it out into the light. But the higher education system is so okay. It's kind of like the Hierophant if the Hierophant were a better liar or a charlatan. Like, colleges aren't necessarily about learning anymore. They're about having a 4 or 5 or 6 year party. Like, they cater to the students and they say, don't worry about it, you don't have to learn anything. We'll let you get by with, learning absolutely nothing. But it's gonna cost you, $10,000 a semester. What am I even talking about anymore? Okay, the Hierophant. We're going to look at some cards, and then I'm going to read a poem that explains what the Hierophant is to me, or could be to you. Looking at the Rider-Waite deck, we have the Pope. Binabel Wynn also explained how there is a theory behind the Hierophant, that it's actually Pope Clement V, who persecuted the Knights Templar in the 1300s and allowed for their execution. That is another very controlling figure. It's an idea of control and conformity. And so we have a very balanced card between two pillars, and everything is very symmetrical. He's got a crown, and there's probably some sort of biblical number associated with how many stars are on it. But anyways, he's holding crosses, and there are 2 adoring supplicants beneath him, one in roses, one in lilies to be super Golden Dawn-ish. And there are 2 crossed keys, probably something like the keys to the ecclesiastical mysteries of life. And so, yeah. Alright, the Hierophant. Next up in the Fantasy Tarot deck, we've got this really alien-looking kind of Hierophant. He is throned in a position of power on this weird alien chair that's walking around, lurching through space. And then we have secrets, or if we're going for the higher education route, degrees, attached to his chair that he can dispense like wisdom to his followers. His eyes are covered, you can't see where he's looking. Anyways, this is a very kingly figure, and he has women in pods or something, and they are naked, they're nude. So if you want to open that can of worms, that can of gender studies and power politics and all that submissive, interesting feminism talk, then go for it. But I'm not going to do that because that is a very lengthy video. So that is the Hierophant in the Fantasy Tarot deck. And then finally, in the Night Sun Tarot deck, I really enjoy what they've done with this card. So he's sitting on a throne, like the others, with bulls on either side, because apparently this card is ruled by Taurus. Woe is me. Because he looks kooky. He looks like he has been in his position of power for too long, and maybe he should be replaced. But he's got this really strange, bizarre look on his face. Anyways, beneath him are the 2 adoring supplicants. However, one is holding up shapes a very philosophical question of, what is presence, being, shape, platonic solid, whatever. And the other one has a knife behind his back, so anarchy. Let's do it. Overthrow the higher education system. Burn down Sally Mae. Anyways, yeah, it sort of reveals the Hierophant to be the kind of grim, like, kind of creepy card that it is. So good job, Night Sun. The poem that I decided to read to hash out the Hierophant is Ars Poetica by Archibald MacLeish, if he's German, MacLeish, if he's anyone else. And this is, not the Roman poem by Horace, but I feel like this is how the Hierophant could be if we reformed the Hierophant. So let's get into it. Ars Poetica, which, footnote, means the art of poetry. A poem should be palpable and mute as a globed fruit, dumb as old medallions to the thumb, silent as the sleeve-worn stone of casement ledges where the moss has grown. A poem should be wordless as the flight of birds. A poem should be motionless in time as the moon climbs, leaving, as the moon releases twig by twig, the night-entangled trees. Leaving as the moon behind the winter leaves, memory by memory, the mind. A poem should be motionless in time as the moon climbs. A poem should be equal to not true. For all this history of grief, an empty doorway and a maple leaf for love. The leaning grasses and the two lights above the sea. A poem should not mean, but be. What just happened? We have a poem pontificating, educating, as the Hierophant is wont to do, about what a poem should be, poetically. So this is not poetry that is about something. It's about itself, and it does it in the way that it should. So, to bring it back to the Hierophant, we have a figure in a position of power. People in power have control over others. That's what a definition of a person in power would be. However, if it's done right, it doesn't poison the power doesn't go stale, or the power doesn't sour, much like higher education, or much like other positions of power. What is it that we like to say? It's not government that is corrupt, it is just attractive to people who are easily corruptible. Something like that. So the idea that the Hierophant is in itself not innately bad, it's just more often than not, it's not going to be a good day for the Hierophant. It's not going to be that pure teacher figure. It's not going to be that pure idea of an institution. It's going to have all of the baggage that comes with institutions. So, I also wanted to read you a second poem. That's right, 2 poems in one video. And it's sort of the Hierophant revisited. It's about poetry as well. And this is by Marion Moore, and it is titled Poetry. I too dislike it. There are things that are important beyond all this fiddle. Reading it, however, with a perfect contempt for it, one discovers in it, after all, a place for the genuine. Hands that can grasp, eyes that can dilate, hair that can rise if it must. These things are important not because a high-sounding interpretation can be put upon them, but because they are useful. When it becomes so derivative as to become unintelligible, the same thing may be said for all of us, that we do not admire what we cannot understand. The bat holding on upside down or in a quest of something to eat, elephants pushing, a wild horse taking a roll, a tireless wolf under a tree, the immovable critic twitching his skin like a horse that feels a flea, the baseball fan, the statistician, nor is it valid to discriminate against business documents and school breaks. All these phenomena are important. One must make a distinction, however. When dragged into prominence by half-poets, the result is not poetry. nor till the poets among us can be literalists of the imagination, above insolence and triviality, and can present for inspection imaginary gardens with real toads in them. Shall we have it? In the meantime, if you demand on the one hand the raw material of poetry in all its rawness, and that which is on the other hand genuine, you are interested in poetry. Okay, so it's a little bit easy to get lost in that poem, but let me talk you through it. Take my hand and we shall explore this poem. So this relates to the Hierophant in my hubris, in my messed up interpretation of higher education, in that basically writing can be good, it can be easy, it can be difficult, and it can be bad. And that's what poetry can be. It can be this phenomenal exploration of things, of whatever abstract noun you want to put it in it. However, if it's so superfluous, if it's so specialized in its language and its argot and its jargon and its, again, this translates into other academic fields of study, if the language is so incomprehensible that you don't get anything out of it, then that's not good writing. So that's not good poetry, and that's not good research. Yes, we need specialists. Yes, technocracy is bad. For the sake of interdisciplinary communication, we need to be able to understand each other. Yes, there is a philosophical question of what is language? Can we ever truly understand each other? Hermeneutics, huzzah, hooray, this is fun, go read some Gadamer. But what we really need to focus on is, are we actually communicating? Are we getting anything across? And in an institution, in a position where you are teaching people how to do things, how to live, how to maintain their sense of identity throughout a world that is cold and mean and wants to suck you dry for all of your student loan debt, maybe we need to communicate better. And the Hierophant, on a good day, can do that. The Hierophant can be poetry. The Hierophant can teach us and educate us. However, maybe we should look into reforming some of our schools and just how we deal with that. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I got to turn over some stones and pick at some scabs that I've got. Felt kind of nice, but also I know I don't know. I am a weirdo, and this is how I interpret my tarot cards. I hope you found something that you can take from that. Please comment below other poems that you think represent the Hierophant, other ideas that you have about the Hierophant. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Is it good? Is it bad? You know, whatever. Maybe the Hierophant ran over your dog and you're right there with me. But let's talk about it. I enjoy these conversations with you. A like is appreciated, a subscription even more so, and as always, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again.